I came out here this afternoon anticipating some storm clouds. So we are coming into what is the wet season in South Florida, in the Everglades. And what we start to see at that time is we get to see more rain, but that means we see more clouds and we see more storms. And that can be a wonderful time of year for especially a landscape photographer to capture some wide-angle shots of those wonderful Florida summer skies and just go out into the open prairie and see what happens as the storms come in. So what I did this morning is I was looking at my radar, as I always do, and I noticed that some storm clouds were forming to the east, and they were going to blow in towards the west, which meant that in this area where I like to photograph, I would see the storm clouds coming in from the east as the sun would be behind me. That's a really nice setup if you can get it to work well, is that as you get closer to sunset and you start to see some colors maybe in the sky, and you got those storm clouds that are just illuminated by that sunlight, it can be very beautiful. Now, I don't know if I'm going to get that today because I'm still about 3 hours away from sunset, and I'm thinking that I'm probably going to have a downpour before that time comes. So I thought I'd come out here early enough, maybe see what happens, and it should be nice even without that sunset color. Anyway, we'll see what happens. So what I wanted to do is share with you how I set up to take a type of shot that is going to be really a wide-angle shot with big sky in the frame. So I have my wide-angle lens, which with the full frame, I get to 17 millimeters. That's not bad. I can get a pretty wide shot with that. So what I'd like to do is show you how I kind of look for the right shot, look for the compositions. So we'll talk about the technical, the camera settings for these types of shots, and then also just some basic composition as well. Before now, what I did is I came out here and I wandered around and just looked for some compositions. Just walked around without the tripod, just holding the camera, taking different shots. And when you have a wide-angle shot where you're going to have a lot of sky, the most important thing you're going to need in your shot within the frame are the clouds. So the clouds are really driving my compositions here. Because there really isn't, I don't have any big mountains to work with, so it's really all sky with a few trees to interrupt the scene. Which leads me to the other thing that I think is really important for a wide-angle shot, and that is you should have something in the foreground that, just will add interest and just kind of lead the eyes into the scene. So if there's just nothing in front of that sky, it can be kind of boring. Okay, so what I did with this setup here, if you can see how I'm standing next to my camera, that will tell you that I have the camera set up pretty high. So this is about 5 feet, maybe a little higher. Why don't I have the camera way down to the ground? If I have a strong foreground, that might be what I would do. But since I don't have a very strong foreground, and the foreground is really these saw palmettos that you see over here, and then I have some limestone rocks over here to the left. So that's about it. If I put the camera way down to the ground, you're not going to see those rocks. They're just going to be hidden in the grasses. So I'm lifting up and I'm pointing upward to get more sky, but I can still see everything that's down here on the ground. So I know you can't see my back panel to see my camera settings, so let me just talk you through my camera settings real quick. So first of all, the focal length that I'm using is the widest. It's 17 millimeters. Now, 2 videos ago, I talked about 3 things that were very important when you go out there in the field that you should master, and that is drive mode, focus mode, and focus area. So as far as drive mode goes, today I am doing single shot. I'm doing a landscape. Now, I don't have a remote control attached yet, but I will as the light recedes and the sun is setting. But right now, the shutter speed is fast enough that I don't even have to have it on the tripod to take a shot right now. Now, as far as focus mode goes, well, focus mode is going to be spot. And if you remember, I said that that's pretty much what I use all the time. Now, with my camera, I do have touch focus, so I can move the focus spot around, which brings me to the other mode, which is focus area. So because I am using spot, I have a lot of options within the frame where to focus. And my focus point in a scene like this is going to be right about where those saw palmettos are. So they are, I'm guessing, about 20 to 25 feet away. So that's a good hyperfocal distance for this type of a shot. Okay, I moved to a different spot, and as I was trying to compose an image, I was trying to find some of these grasses, and there's some yellow flowers that are hopefully a nice foreground. And in order for me to get that big sky, and I've got this camera angled upward to do that, I couldn't really get right on top of the foreground interest. So I had to back away to get that in the frame. That's the limitations of the lens that I'm using. If I was using an 11 millimeter, I probably wouldn't have to do that. I could keep those grasses more closer and have them more prominent in the foreground and still get that big sky. But that's okay. I'm working within my limits, and by backing off, I was able to get some nice contrast in the foreground and also keep those clouds in the sky. One more thing about having the camera angled upward is that it really dramatizes the clouds. So it makes it look like the clouds are just coming right at us. All right, so as you wait, clouds are going to change, obviously. Things are changing, and you could probably see the difference just in the last 5-10 minutes. So don't just sit there with your camera and just wait for one composition. Think about what's happening and how you can capture that the best way. So as I'm looking at the sky, I'm seeing more drama way off in the distance. And so I thought, you know what would happen if I zoomed in? What would that look like? So what I did is I zoomed in and I brought the camera down. So I brought it down. I didn't have it angled up because I didn't want this part of the sky. So I'm just focusing way off in the distance beyond those saw palmettos here that are now in the foreground. So, so by doing that, I'm just tightening up the scene and just really focusing on what seems to be more dramatic way off in the distance. I've been moving around, trying to get different compositions, zooming in, zooming out, really focusing on what is really going on in the sky. And, well, here comes the rain, so I better hurry.